Extraordinary detail now. Perhaps many people have been wondering. So for weeks now, the gaps. What happened in between those stops? That's some of what we know now based on the state's attorney general who provided that information. So I'm joined now by Joey Jackson. He's HLN's legal analyst and the criminal defense attorney. And Cheryl Dorsey, formerly of the Los Angeles Police Department as a sergeant. Thanks to both of you for joining me. I know it's very noisy here. This is going to be a place of many demonstrators, so hopefully we can get through the music right now and people can still hear us. So that timeline certainly fills in a lot of blanks. What transpired likely before or even after the videotape that the world saw about how he was detained. When you saw the sequence of events, Cheryl, to you first, when it really does highlight how some potential suspects are arrested and how they are transported, what strikes you about that timeline?
Well, listen, this is what I understood all along, is that what happened to Freddie Gray was about punishment, right? I understand that those officers probably have a history with him because he lives in that area and they work in that area.
You have a word for that I know you've used before.
Contempt of Cop, absolutely.
And so what does that mean exactly?
What that means is that if you don't do what I tell you to do as a police officer, there's a price to pay. If you run, if you don't come here, if you don't comply, if you don't stop resisting, there's a price to pay. And we've seen what that price is. It's death, right? In the case of Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Ezell Ford in Los Angeles. And so now we have Freddie Gray who makes eye contact and runs. Listen, suspects running is inherent to police work. And so we understand that if a suspect runs, it's my duty as an officer to get ready to get some exercise. You don't get to kill them. And so what went on in that van is absolutely what I suspected. It was punishment. They made those stops because I believe someone got in the back of that van, and I believe they dealt with him, as they said in their report. And then when they realized that they had really hurt him, now they're trying to figure out how do we explain this.
So early on, Joey, before we heard from the state's attorney yesterday, the prosecutor, there was an understanding that in certain high crime areas, the police are allowed to pursue a suspect, and that invitation apparently was used in this case. Because this suspect or this person was running, it wasn't the suspect of anything, but because he was running, they had license to pursue him. But when we heard from the prosecutor yesterday, it seems as though that permission was denied. She says there was no probable cause and there was no reason, and he had not been unlawful. The knife that he had was within regulation. So does this mean that I guess federal allowance is not used in a city like Baltimore?
Well, let's break it down. When the federal government speaks, Frederica, and the Supreme Court in particular speak, they speak for the country. And the Supreme Court has said, to be fair, if you're in a high crime area, Supreme Court case, it's not indicative of criminality, but it could be suggestive of it. So says the Supreme Court. So that gives, and let's talk about two things. That gives reasonable suspicion in order to approach and potentially pat frisk someone. It doesn't give probable cause for arrest. That could